We're going to take you now through something that's very interesting. It's a terrible and puzzling story. A young man, a teenager, is in jail today in Toledo, Ohio. The reason he's in a jail in Toledo, Ohio, was because of an alleged sexual assault. The case is still pending in large measure, but people call it out rape. And he has told police, I was doing what I was doing. But here's the punchline, right? It all happened in plain view of witnesses, in broad daylight, next to a street while people were driving by, right?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, it's one of those stories that was certainly on our radar, and it made me think, what would you do if you're driving by? You would hope you would stop and do something, but that's the thing. No one did anything as far as getting out of a car. Imagine, especially ladies, you're 26, you're walking, this woman was walking to the library, like you said, broad daylight. This guy pops out of nowhere, takes a pair of scissors to your neck, forces you down to the ground, rapes you. No one stops to help.
And this is that area, by the way. I'm drawing a picture for folks, and we'll be able to see part of it. But it's like in that easement between the sidewalk and the street, right?
Right. Broad daylight, again. Now, one woman who did drive by, she did call 911. Here is a portion of that call. Listen.
On the cell phone, Toledo 911.
Yes, I think that there's somebody either taking advantage or raping somebody on Royalton by Birchall, about 2 streets more west or something like that. It's a black guy, and he's taking off the pants of a white woman, and they're laying on the sidewalk.
This is a black male?
Yes, with a white girl on the ground, and her legs are all exposed, and he's between her legs. And
you didn't see any weapons, did you?
No, I didn't.
So we should point out, yes, we reached out to that woman to try to have her on. She was so emotional. She broke down on the phone. She relieves it every day. It happened last week. She has nightmares, she says, every night.
And it was hard to make the call because I understand a lot of people weren't quite,
they're not quite sure if it was consensual or not.
Exactly. It's easy to blame people. Why didn't you immediately go over there? Well, sometimes you're just so uncomfortable with things you see, you're not quite sure how to make it.
You're kind of like, what's going on?
Right.
Is she consenting or not? Bottom line, there were a number of people who passed by in cars. They were laying on their horns, honking at this suspect, 15 years old, did not stop violating this woman.
Joining me now from Toledo is Ashley McCoy. She knows this neighborhood. In fact, she grew up in this neighborhood. She was driving by that day as well, and she is one of the people who saw this happen. Also joining us is Brooke Baldwin, who's been drilling down on this story as well. And you know what, before we even start the interview, we should also say that we've tried to contact the other side, right? We called the attorneys.
We reached out to the defense attorney. It's important to point that out as well, where we're reaching out to
No
both
comment
sides.
so far.
No comment so far.
All right, let's start with you if we can, Ashley. What time was it? What did you see? Describe for our viewers what you saw that day.
It was 2:30 in the afternoon. I was driving down the street with my kids and my babysitter, and he had noticed something up above on the sidewalk, and I looked, and we were like, "Wow, that's crazy!"
Can you see? Can you see a monitor? Can you see a monitor right now? Can you see what we're broadcasting? All right, I'll describe it for you. We're looking at a corner intersection. There seems to be a fire hydrant there on the right. And there's a street, and it looks like the street goes straight, but there's a left turn. Can you tell our viewers where this incident was happening so we get a better idea?
It was right before a corner.
Right.
On the left-hand side.
Right.
On the side of somebody's house on the sidewalk.
So we're looking basically then, as you describe it, I think the picture we're looking at reflects the area we're talking about. It's not like it was behind a bush. It wasn't like it was behind a placard, or it was literally out in the open.
Yes. We weren't sure on what was happening. We just seen 2 people having sex, and that's what it looked like. We didn't see no signs of struggle or cry for help or anything. I had laid on my horn because we thought it was 2 teenagers. So I laid on my horn, tell them, get up, that's not right. Well, when we had drove off, and the person that I was with, he said that, that's just weird, that doesn't seem right. So he had went back to the scene, and that's when the police and the fire trucks and all that was there.
Wait, the person who was riding in your car with you after driving by. So when you first drove by, your first impression was, this is weird, but maybe it's just two people having sex. Let me just go on. Later on,
we thought
Go ahead.
I said we thought for sure that it was just two people having sex. There was no other, anything that indicated that anything else but them having sex.
So interestingly enough, other motorists went by and reported to police, as in the sound that we shared with our viewers moments ago, that to them it was a rape. Obviously, that could be because they saw something you didn't see when you went by, right? You didn't all go out at the same time. I get that.
Right.
I get that. Has there been a lot of criticism in town? Have you felt like, my God, maybe I should have been more on top of this? I should have been more aware?
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of criticism, but I had my kids in my car, so even if I did see something, that showed that she was being raped, I probably would have just called 911 because I had my babies in my car. So
that makes sense.
Ashley, let me ask you this, and I don't know if it was perhaps female intuition eventually that you thought, you know what, this wasn't just consensual sex, something wasn't right. Do you think, because I feel like there's been a lot of stories in the news lately where we just kind of wonder after the fact, why didn't someone speak up? Is there something you and perhaps all of us can glean from this kind of incident?
I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was just consensual sex. There was no signs of her being raped as far as any struggle or a cry for help.
What about now?
I laid on my horn.
Yeah, now do you wish you had stopped?
Yes. Of course, but like I said, there's nothing else that I could have done besides call 911 because I had my kids in my car.
One more thing. I have to ask you one more thing because I just heard you say I laid on my horn, which doesn't sound like just a quick beep, toot thing. You laid on your horn, so it was a loud sound.
Yeah, and basically it was just like telling them to get up. And move because that wasn't right because I thought they were just young teenagers having sex on the sidewalk.
Right, but my question is, when you laid on your horn, that act was taking place. What was his reaction? What happened?
His reaction was he just looked up and he just continued doing what he was doing, and she it was just the same. It was nothing different.
The alleged perpetrator, a high school freshman. I want you to hear what the police officers are saying about this accused.
If someone's brazen enough at age 15 to grab an unknown female off the street in the middle of the day, I think the chances of his actions continuing are very likely.
That was Sergeant Sam Harris of the Toledo Police Department, 33 years on the force. He is my next guest. We're going to talk about the kid in the moment, this high school freshman. First, though, let me ask you this, if we could, officer. What is a citizen's duty in a case like this? I mean, broad daylight, crowded street. If I were to see something like this, or here, better yet, suppose my wife were driving down the street and she was to see this, how would you want her to do? How would you want her to respond?
Just exactly as the caller whose 911 tape you played. Call the police immediately, supply them with as much and complete information as they can, and then let the police respond from that point on.
At what point, Sergeant, would you want someone who feels capable of going in there and trying to either break it up or save this young lady?
Well, we don't encourage people to become involved in a physical nature on their own due to the risks they may entail on their own.
Ever?
In this
Ever?
case, it's a personal decision. I would like to think that if a young virile male was to be able to stop the assault, they would. But in this case, the suspect was armed with a pair of scissors, which he'd already threatened the female with, his victim. And if he was brazen enough to threaten and rape a female on a city street in broad daylight, who's to say what he might have done had someone tried to intervene?